Hey guys, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And I am Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
Well, this is kind of a milestone. We made it to Season 2. How cool is that?
Yes, it has been so fun.
It has. This has shocked me how much we've enjoyed this and just how much it's helped me to learn and grow. And the feedback that you guys have been giving us is incredible. Please keep it coming.
Yes, we really appreciate everyone who's listening and everyone who's giving us any kind of feedback and just sharing your story with us.
Yes, that's great.
After, hearing ours. So we love it. Please keep it coming.
And in Season 2, we'll be entering the next chapter of my prison life or journey through the Department of Corrections, and I'm heading back to Sweet Home, Alabama after 4 years.
Yeah, so you did your 45 days, right? In the very beginning, your drug and where you're robbing people.
Yeah.
You went to prison, spent your first 3.5 years in Florida prison, and I believe we ended with you were in transition on your way to Sweet Home, Alabama.
As an inmate, you dream of the day when you get to walk up to that, that front gate and walk out. Well, I got to the front gate, but I had a hold on me in Alabama, so I had a transfer van waiting on me. So
I've only seen the movies, and yes, it is like someone's waiting for a person when they comes out, and they run and hug and cry, but I don't think I've ever seen where you were locked up and then just going to the next prison.
Yeah, that was that takes a toll on your mind, on your emotions, on your everything. That was and there was another part of that was you want to cry, you just want to bawl your eyes out, but there were already 2 or 3 other guys in that transfer van, so you don't want to show weakness in front of people, so you kind of have to just suck it up. But I remember leaving there just feeling like a softball. I have a softball in my throat and I can't let it out. And then I got car sick when we first got in the van, which was weird because I'd never been car sick before. I've never been car sick since that time, but it was a weird. I'd been there for like 3 years and never been in a car, so it was...
It's crazy. So how long were you going to be in? I know it's going to be a while. I don't know how many hours it is from...
So it's like a 10-hour drive from... Okay. I had already mapped that out, just trying to, I feel better like when I know what's going to happen.
To mentally prepare.
Yeah, so I was prepared for like a 10-hour drive. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't understand was I was being transported not by a deputy or by anybody in law enforcement. This was like a transfer company. It was like they pay this company to go around transferring people from state to state. I guess somehow it's different when they take you from another state. And I had never been transferred like this before, so I was expecting, get in there, ride up there and be done with it. But it ended up taking like 3 or 4 days to get there before we finally got there. And then...
3 or 4 days?
Yeah, because see what they do. They go from wherever they started from. They picked me up in Central Florida. Then they went like all over Florida to like different county jails and prisons, picking up people.
Okay.
And then in that process, they would also drop people off. So it was basically like they would fill up their little prison van with 10 or 12 guys, and they would just run their route. And when they got close to where you were, they'd drop you off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there was one night I spent in a county jail, and I think they wouldn't tell me where I was. Like it was some kind of security thing where they had us spend the night, and then the next morning another transfer van came and got us. You're handcuffed, your feet are shackled, and then you're like handcuffed to this metal bench that you're sitting on. And then there were windows in the van so you could see out, but it was had mesh bars covering it up. And I just remember thinking, what if this guy don't know how to drive? Like, what if they have a wreck? What's going to happen? Because they didn't, I guess they were professional, but they didn't seem too professional to me. They were more like what you would think, like the difference between a police officer and a security guard.
Yeah.
A security guard, this is just my job. I'm doing my little job. And I didn't feel very stable, put it that way.
So you said you spent one night in a county jail where you didn't know where you were. Where did you spend? Do you have to sleep in the van?
No, they actually processed you into a unit.
Oh, to sleep and then to start the next morning.
And then they fed you breakfast and you left again. They just didn't tell us where we were. So I'm just in the wilderness somewhere. Nobody knows where I am. I guess they know where I am, but I just had that feeling of just utter, like I'm lost. Like nobody knows where I am. I couldn't communicate with my family. And I never knew that. I never heard of that, never knew that. I didn't know that was even a thing, that you could get caught up on a transfer for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
So that was what ended up happening. And they would feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but they would pull through a McDonald's and they would get you the same thing. There was no negotiating. You got a filet of fish sandwich and a water. So that was your breakfast, that was your lunch, that was your dinner. I don't know why. I have no idea why. That was just how they did it.
That's weird. Like, who decided that? I'm like,
maybe the fish sandwich was cheaper. I don't know, or more healthy, or just keep you alive till you get there.
wow.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
So breakfast, lunch, and dinner was all the fish sandwich
McDonald's filet fish
with water.
with water.
Oh gosh.
I don't know. It was just.
I mean, I love my freedom.
That was rough. But then it was going to get rougher because they went up through Georgia and they did a route through Georgia. And I remember seeing the sign saying we're in Georgia, thinking, "Gosh, are we ever going to get to Alabama?" And you would try to ask them, and they would just ignore you. And you were basically like in the van with them. It was just like this little mesh thing in between you. So all the you could have conversation, but they mostly had conversation with each other. It was just a long, horrible, long, never-ending ride. And, I saw so many outsides of so many county jails. And then he was making a stop in Columbus, Georgia, which kind of got me excited and kind of got me depressed because Columbus, Georgia was on the border of Phoenix City, Alabama, where I grew up. So that was my area. I mean, that was my home.
So did you recognize where you were?
Well, when we started getting close, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up there. I mean, we moved there when I was 10, but I had been, that was, my mom was from there, so I'd been around there all my life. And I had lived there since I was 10. But just him coming into Columbus, and there was a weird, like, I guess, I don't know if it was a phenomenon or what it was, but it was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing that was going on, was that the 1996 Olympics were coming to Atlanta, Georgia, which was a huge deal.
Right.
I mean, especially somebody like me that loves history. And what I didn't know was that some of the games were being played in Columbus, Georgia.
Wow.
So as we were pulling in, we went down Victory Drive, and they had built a new park. There were banners and there were signs, and everything was all about the Olympics coming to Columbus, which I didn't even know that. I knew they were coming to Atlanta, which was a big deal. But that was depressing, just thinking, gosh, I'm missing everything. I'm missing everything. Like, that the Olympics are coming here is a big deal, but also knowing it probably will never happen again, at least in my lifetime. Nothing like that ever is going to happen again. I had some emotions about that. That whole time you're in the car by yourself trying to process and, go over the last, 3 or 4 years. And I was really missing my friends from BCI because I'd gotten close, and especially missing Big O. I was just, he could always encourage me. I was really missing him. And then just thinking all the thoughts. You don't have anything to do but sit and think. And as we got into Columbus, the driver got lost. And so this was before Google Maps or cell phones or any of that stuff. And he was on his radio, like trying to get directions, and he kept getting worse lost. And he was taking us
worse lost.
Well, he was taking us away from where I knew where the county jail was, and he was not going in that direction. He was going in another direction. So I said, "Hey, I'm from here. I could give you directions." And he kind of like shot me like an annoyed like glance, and then he gave up and asked me to give him directions. And so I gave him directions, took him straight to the Muskogee County Jail. We pulled in, picked up an inmate there, and then we got back out on the highway to head to Montgomery. And I was just glad, I know I got to go to Alabama. I'm not exactly sure where Montgomery is, but I know it's not that far from Phoenix City. I was just excited to be see some Alabama land after all those years. But then what happened next was, I don't know, it was probably one of the lowest points of my life was when they pulled the van out. He went down Highway 280, which cuts through the heart of Phoenix City. And just seeing, that's where I grew up, just seeing, and it looked like nothing on that side of the river changed. Obviously, the Olympics weren't coming to Phoenix City. But it just was depressing, and just seeing it with my eyes. And then the worst was when we got down to the edge of Phoenix City. We got stopped at a red light, and at that red light, there were some trees off to the right, and I knew that behind those trees was my mama's house, and I knew that she was there, and it was just like life. Like, what happened? Like, how did I get here? And just feeling that it was just like a deep, like, depression, but at the same time I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry because they were like, at that time, I think we had like 8 other guys in there, and you don't show weakness in front of other inmates because they'll take advantage of you. And just like sucking that in, and, you know, and again, I know I put myself in that situation, but there was something about that visual of like seeing the trees and like knowing, like, if he were to take a right, I could be home in a minute. It was rough. And then as we went from there, I guess it was like an hour plus drive. They didn't stop anywhere else. They went straight to Montgomery County from there. I just was like trying to find a way in my mind, like, is there a way, like, is there something like different? Like, is there something, there's got to be something else. Like, this can't be life. I'd rather be dead, like, than to keep, you know, experiencing this kind of stuff. I'd rather just not be here anymore. And I remembered a story that I read in one of those little spiritual books that I had. It was about a bottle of water. Some man came upon a bottle of water in the desert. The water bottle was full. The note said, if you'll pour this water bottle into the well, it'll prime the well and you'll get all the water you want, then fill it up for the next guy. And that it took faith for this guy to pour the water in there, and then it worked. And that was supposed to be describing faith. And I remember like reading that and being like, that's an interesting story, but I don't really get, I mean, I guess I didn't have a frame of reference for it, or this whole thing about, you know, you're supposed to believe in something you can't see or something greater than you. And just, I was trying to like think about that, and then it still didn't make any sense to me. And then I started remembering my last guy that I worked for. Actually, I was working for him when I got caught up in the drug game, Patrick Quillec. He was a French chef, and he was not from around there, but he had came there to start the Chattahoochee River Club, which was a big deal down there. There wasn't a lot of nice stuff like that, but it was a private supper club in Columbus, Georgia, and it was like the talk of the town for a couple years while they were building it, because they built a river walk to go with it. And when they started hiring for the restaurant part of it, a friend of mine was going to put in an application and talked me into going with him, and I wasn't interested in, I mean, I knew I didn't fit in that world, but I went anyways just to do it because he wouldn't stop bugging me about it.
And when was this?
That was the 2 years before I got into the drug deal. It was when my cousin was gone.
Okay, and you were doing good.
Everything was going well. And I met this guy, went into his office to fill out an application, and all the people in there had on like suits and ties, and I had on a T-shirt and a baseball cap. And so I felt out of place. And I remember he called me in and basically asked me, why aren't you putting an application to work here? Like, I hire people. Have you been to culinary school? And so I said, no. And he said, then why do you think you could work with me? And I was like, who are? I don't even know who you are. But he had a French accent, and he talked funny, and he offended me. And so I knew after that initial conversation.
Well, he just made you feel stupid, I guess.
He made me feel like nothing.
Yeah.
And like he pointed to me like he had this big stack of applications. He said, these are all qualified applicants. Like, why would you even bother? And it pissed me off. So I said, I didn't think there was a shot then, but I was like, I can do anything I set my mind to. And if you're talking about working in a kitchen, if you would show me what to do, I can. Once I learn it, I can do it.
If you'll show me what to do.
If you'll teach me how to do it, I can do anything if you teach me how to do it. And I left there just knowing that I pissed him off, and he pissed me off. But it was about 3 weeks later, I got a call from him. He chose me to be on his launch team. And, it was a lot of money, insurance. It was a really good job. And I was actually scared to take the job because I knew that's not my world. The fancy French people. But he would end up being like one of the bedrock relationships in my life because he taught me everything he knew. He taught me, I knew how to cook my granny's way and, the Ryan Steakhouse way and stuff like that. But he taught me how to make everything from scratch, taught me how to make pasta, taught me how to make sauces. He even one time made me make crackers from scratch. And I'm like, crackers? But he wanted that was his philosophy.
Tell me, did you ever ask him why he chose you? Because that is interesting when he was talking to you that way.
Later on, he told me he felt like that Jesus put me on his heart, which I didn't believe in all that, so it didn't make any sense to me. But he had been like an alcoholic and, just like a rowdy, chef guy. And him and his wife had this experience where they had got radically what he called saved. And I wasn't into that. I didn't want to hear all that. He would be teaching me how to make pasta and then talk to me about Jesus. And I'm like, all right, I'm sure there's some kind of law. Like you can't, have you ever heard of the separation between church and state? Like this is what we do in America. We don't mix this stuff. But he never gave up on me. Like he invited me into his home with his kids, his wife, his family, taught me everything he knew. And I worked for him for a couple of years. But then there at the end, when I got on drugs, he knew something was going on. And I told him I had to get out of there. And he was going to send me to Atlanta. He had a friend that ran a hotel there, a Spanish hotel. I guess it was a Spaniard friend. Mm-hmm. And that was the plan. But that day I couldn't stop thinking about his story because he would explain to me, like, there's this plan of salvation.
Oh, wait, so which day could you not stop thinking about his story?
That one, I was on the transfer van to Montgomery, Alabama. I'd just seen my mom's house. Mm-hmm. And just at the end of myself, like just couldn't. But I couldn't stop thinking about Patrick's little story because he would try to explain this stuff to me, and it would make my head hurt. And then I would go home and smoke weed, and then I would say, "Oh, this is what he meant. This is what he meant." And then the next day I'd try to explain it to him, and then I couldn't. So it was just he was using like words and imagery and stuff that I didn't know what he was talking about. Like. Mm-hmm. Like there's a throne, there's a little seat that sits in your heart, and you're sitting on it, or the devil's sitting on it, and this is how he talked. I mean, and you have to let Jesus sit on the throne, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't believe in that.
But I think it's so interesting, though, because, I mean, what's going through my mind as you're talking about this and just hearing, your previous prison experience, and it's something that I can't really imagine because on Facebook and social media you see all these memes like take control of your life, make the decision to start today, whatever it is that you're going to start to make your life better. Mm-hmm. But in your situation, and people anyone when they're in prison, it's like literally you have no control, like they have control, whoever. They have control. And so you get to the point, I mean, this is what it sounds like to me, that, I mean, you just kind of realize that and are grasping for anything to give you some kind of a relief or hope from that. Yeah.
And since we were talking about Patrick and Joy, they never gave up on me. After I got arrested, they wrote me letters like every week, him or his wife or one of his daughters later on would become like a pen pal. I mean, nothing like romantic, just like friends stuff.
And they're Facebook friends with both of us now. I've never met them personally, but...
They're in Kansas City now, so they're far away. When I went to Colorado in 2007, I actually stopped by and saw his restaurant, and it was awesome. Pretty cool. Yeah. But this day, I had that in my mind, and I was prepared to be arrested again, but I wasn't really prepared for what would come next because there's a stark difference between a county jail in the state of Florida and a county jail in the state of Alabama. Big, huge. I mean, and later on I found out there's a big difference in the prisons as well. But I was just shocked at the conditions, when I got to the Montgomery County Jail. So they process you in. It's the same. They do the same thing every time they process you. They strip you down. They look in all your, they make you bend over and they look up your butt and they, make you move everything around. Look, they search all your cavities, I think they call it. And then, I had like books and like notebooks and, all my addresses, like everything. that I had, and they took all that from me. And I remember, like, I can't have nothing. Like, there's nothing. You have nothing.
You had started journaling. Did they take your journal?
Yeah, they took everything. They take everything.
Oh, wow.
But now, in a county jail like that, they put it in your property, and then, like, when your people come, they can get it.
Okay.
So that was what ended up. So it wasn't gone forever, but it's like they take it from you. You don't have nothing. And then as they were processing me, I was so used to looking down at the piece of paper where it said bond, where it says HWOB, which means hold without bond. I was shocked when I looked down and it said bond amount was $10,000. And I actually asked the lady, I have a bond? And she was like, yeah. And that was like, such a letdown. And then like that excitement, it was like almost like euphoric, like I can go home. I might be here for another day or so, but I got a bond. I can go home. And just that put me on top of the world because I knew.
Did you think you were going home or could possibly go home for good?
No, I knew if I went, I knew that I would most likely get some kind of a prison sentence out of this. But just to be able to go home for a couple of months would have been amazing. Mm-hmm. It probably would have been harder to get locked up again, but it would be being locked up in the county jail. Right. County jail time's a hard time. It's not like being in prison. You have stuff to do, and it's a different world. County jail time it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's very hard. So, was excited about that. I got up there. They took me up to the top floor again because of my crimes. They always put me on with the worst of them. Wasn't really knowing anything about that county jail. Every county jail is different. Was not prepared for what I would see there. They pop open the door. They give you a mat. And they have these little 2-story units that were built for, I believe it was 18 men. There were like 9 beds. No, I think it was 20. They were bunk beds, so it'd have to be 10 and 10. So it was like 10 men on the bottom, 10 on the top, a little bathroom, day room, all that stuff. But there were like close to 60 people in there. And just like seeing how they had people crammed in there like sardines, and just the smells and the looks. And this was later on at night, so I guess they had kind of mellowed out a little bit that first night. But, they give you a bunk, not a bunk, it's like a little mat they roll up. And they told me to go find a place on the floor to put it. So I never saw anything like that in Florida. It was like in Florida they had rules, I guess, where they had to take care of you, where they couldn't put you on the floor, maybe. I don't know. That was a shocker. And then it was violent. Like it was like little gang members. And, my first hour in there, I saw a guy get beat down. And I'd seen like fights in jail and in prison, but I'd never saw like this was like it was probably 7 or 8 guys, black guys, that jumped on a white guy and just beat him and just wouldn't stop beating him. And then the police, they didn't come in, and just standing there and watching him, like watching his eye split open and blood spurt out everywhere and him screaming. I had never seen nothing like that. So it was a little bit of a shock.
And the police didn't do anything about it?
Well, they came and pulled him out. They didn't do anything to the guys that did it. It was just like, so I was like, wow. I was kind of like, Toto, we ain't in Kansas no more. So whatever I thought was bad about Florida compared to this Montgomery ordeal was totally flipped. It was crazy. I remember I put my mat on the floor and I went to sleep, I guess, that first night. I think the phones were already cut off, so I couldn't call home. But, I did the first thing in the morning. But it was, I remember waking up that next morning, and it was rowdy, and it was crazy. And there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of intimidation. And I had gotten on a workout routine, that little reentry program I was in Florida, because my goal was to be able to do a pull-up before I left Florida. Right. And I actually was learning to do push-ups, and if you did it with your buddies, they could help you. Like they would do your feet for you until you had the strength to do a pull-up. And I got to where I could do 2, almost 3 before I left. So I was trying to stay with that, like get myself in shape. And I remember I woke up that morning and I did some push-ups and took a shower, and then I was just waiting on them to jump on me like they did the other ones. So they didn't mess with me, and I was trying to figure out, like, why ain't they mess with me? I mean, I wasn't being a smart aleck to anybody or anything like that, but I remember, having that distinct thought. I wonder why they weren't messing with me. And then I started hearing, like, the whispers, like they were saying, oh, he came from prison. So I guess, that, and then, we talked to one of our ones about the unit.
Oh, yes.
So I had my unit on, I guess.
The face expression.
Yeah.
So don't mess with me or
don't
something.
mess with me. So, but they didn't bother me. And then I got on the phone bright and early, called home, and everybody was so excited. I called my Aunt Sue because she was the one that always helped me with my legal problems, or, she was the person that could get it done. She was, like, very good friends with the sheriff in Russell County, which was in Phoenix City. And she could actually go there and then give them, like, the deed to her house or to one of her properties, and then they could come and get me. So she wanted to make sure we did it right, and she's also very cautious. Everything had to be ran through my uncle. And, we spent the day back and forth, and she contacted her sheriff friend and got everything worked out. So they were coming to get me the next morning. And I don't know, just the thought of being able to walk out in the free air and to be able to see my family and to get something to eat, just
yeah, after those fillet of fishes all the way.
Well, yeah, and the food was really horrible in Montgomery. But I went to sleep that night, had full of hope, excitement, just I'm going home.
Like one extreme to the other, the lowest of lows to like
the highest of highs.
Yeah.
And I knew that I probably wouldn't stay out, that I was probably going to get some kind of, but it was possibility, like they could give me some kind of time served or something. They could do whatever they wanted. I was just happy to be, even if it was just for 2 weeks, to be able to go home and see my family. I just want to see my family without, looking through glass or, all that stuff. So the next morning I woke up and, I think they had pancakes or something they didn't normally have for breakfast. And I gave those away because I knew I wouldn't eat them because I would be at the Waffle House.
Oh.
Very, very shortly. It was like, then it was like.
Very shortly.
Oh, yeah. That was the first thing we were going to do. We got to eat.
Yeah.
The 8 o'clock turned into 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock turned into 10 o'clock. Around 10 o'clock, I started getting nervous. And then there was one or two guys in there that I've been talking to. And they told me, Montgomery County is the worst county in Alabama. That your people have probably been down there for 4 hours. And it's just how they do here. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Might as well just relax. Everything's going to be okay. 10 turned into 11. 11 turned into 12. Lunch came. I didn't eat that either. But then I started thinking maybe I should eat lunch. Because if you don't eat what they give you, you don't get nothing else.
Right.
I mean, I started thinking maybe I should try to eat the nasty lunch. I don't know. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. But I started having like this pit in my stomach where I just knew whatever you think is going to happen is not fixing to happen. Mm-hmm. And it was just that sick feeling. And I waited till like 1 o'clock and I called my mom and I couldn't. She answered the phone, which told me she was not there when she answered the phone.
Because there's no cell phones. This is a landline.
Yeah, we didn't.
Okay.
There was no cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, there were for like Wall Street executives, I guess, but not.
What year was this? I think I got my first cell phone in '96.
No.
I think so.
Maybe you did. I didn't know anything about it. If there were. I have been gone since 93. And actually, when I got out of prison in 1999 and everybody was running around with cell phones, I thought they were crazy. I mean, I didn't get my first cell phone until 2002. I didn't want one.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to be able to get me.
That's hilarious.
Like, I don't want to be in my car and you be able to call me and I have to answer and talk to you. I'd rather you leave me a message on my answer machine.
Okay, we digress. So 1 o'clock, you call your mom. She answers.
I can't understand what she's saying. She's like crying. I don't know what she's saying. She won't stop crying. She's just, I don't know. So by this time she had gotten back together with her fourth husband who she was divorced from, my stepdad, Jeff. They had gotten back together and I guess they were kind of married, but they never got married. I don't know what that was. But anyways, he lived there. He jumped on the phone, and he was kind of a redneck. No, he was a redneck for real. My mama could pick him. He got on the phone and started like this rant, like telling me that my Aunt Sue was calling her names and then talking about my uncle. And then he told me they don't care about you. They don't want to get you out. They don't give a damn about you. And I was like, what are you put my mama back on the phone. So I got my mom back on the phone and couldn't make any sense out of what she was saying other than they couldn't, that my Aunt Sue and my Uncle Vernon couldn't do the bond. So I said, well, let me call them and I'll call you back. And, everything's going to be all right. I don't know how it's going to be all right. And I actually shocked myself that I was telling her I was going to be okay because I didn't know where that was coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I called my Aunt Sue, and she was very upset. She was crying, too. And what happened was she went to sign the property bond, do everything like she said she was going to do, but her friend is the sheriff.
Right.
Her friend don't work at the sheriff's office. Her friend is the sheriff. He was the one helping her, and he knows everything. So he came out as they were signing the property bond and said, Sue, they've got a hold on him in this county, this county, this county, and this county. If you bond him out, he's not going to get out. They're just going to transfer him to another county, and then you'll never be able to bond him out of all the counties. So you might as well just let him sit it out and see what happens. And I agreed with her. It was devastating, but I agreed with her. Like, there's no reason to bond me out of Montgomery just for me to go to jail somewhere else.
Right.
And then he also said there was no indication that they would even give me a bond. So, because they have different counties have different kind of holds. And just because I had a bond in Montgomery don't mean I would have one in Shelby County. And
right.
It was just all this old stuff was coming up, and they basically didn't want me to get out. Mm. So I agreed with her. I told her, it's just, you did the right thing. But she was crying, and then she said she was upset because my mom's husband or ex-husband or whatever he was was saying like mean things about her, like saying that she didn't care about me and she was this, that, and the other, and she was more bothered by that. And I just said, well, you know what, Sue, he's just an ignorant redneck, and I hope you don't think I'm listening to any of that because I know you. Anyways, I don't even care what he's got to say because I'm not living that kind of life anymore. I've decided to take a different path.
You said that to...
I said that to her, but I didn't even know. I was just saying not the redneck life, not that, the way he thinks, like he's always thinking somebody's against him and, everybody's out to get you. That's all I was talking about.
Okay, so how you're defining the redneck life is, just to be clear.
Not all rednecks, just...
Right.
The way I grew up, the rednecks that I knew, they were mean, they were vindictive. It was always a battle, a fight. It was just always, something I don't want to be a part of. And I said, I'm choosing a different path. Mm-hmm. And when I said that, she started like bawling, crying, and then laughing and then crying. And I'm just thinking, what's wrong with her? Like, like, what are you doing? So she's like snot crying. And then she said, I said, what's the matter? Sue, what's the matter? And she said, boy, are you trying to tell me that you got saved? And so I said, no, I'm not. I'm not trying to tell you that. And then she said, well, I've been praying for you all these years. And she's a good Baptist.
Did you know what she meant?
I knew the phrase. I knew what saved meant because I'd seen them. They always did that. But then they would get unsaved and then they'd go get saved again and all that stuff. So it wasn't anything that I was fond of or would ever apply to myself. I got saved. If you want me to get saved, come bond me out of jail. Save me. I'm saved. I'm out. So I didn't respond to her the way she wanted me to. But what she said bothered me. Like it was a weird... and Patrick would always say that to me. You need to get saved. And I'm like, okay. I've got a plate in there. I don't know if you've ever saw that everybody signed like one of the dinner plates from the River Club when I left. And
no, I haven't seen that.
It's in my stuff. But his was get saved, shift. That's what he put on it. Get saved. And it was so annoying. It was like, whatever. But anyways, this day, she said that. I wrapped it up. I got off the phone. And I went back into strategy mode, survival. I got to figure out how to survive this. I don't have anything. They took all my stuff. So I needed a book or something. So I hung up the phone, looked over on the TV, and there was 2 or 3 books. There was one that was thicker than the others. And thick books take longer to read, so you can kind of get lost in them. And I just needed to go, get on my mat and read or do something to get my mind out of my situation. Does that make sense?
Where you were, basically.
Yeah. So there was a book. The cover was like ripped off of it, but I thought I'll figure it out. I picked up the book, walking back to my mat, and it wasn't like the inside words. It was like there was like little like blurbs on the front part of the book. You know how they might take a little portion of the book and put little, I don't even know what that is, like teases or whatever. And it said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest." And it just like jumped off at me. I remember that happened to me one time before when I found like a Bible study or something when I was at BCI. And I was holding it and I thought, well, I sure am weary and burdened. And then like opening it up and then seeing like the chapter and verse and realizing that it was the Bible. And I was like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't do that. But then for some reason I held on to it. I went back to my mat and I sat down and I was just looking at it, and it was not a King James Bible. It was actually a New International Version, and it had like English words that I understood. And I looked through that little front piece and was about to get up and go put it back when it was like I could hear the words of this little old man that used to come in. He did like prison ministry stuff. He came in when I was in Monticello, and I really liked him. He was a sweet little old man, and he would always want to talk to me, and I'd always listen to him and let him pray for me and then forget everything he said as soon as he left. But it was like that day, like his words just spoke to me, and I hadn't seen him in like 3.5 years. And he said, "Son, when you start reading God's word, you need to start with the New Testament. It's the story of Jesus, and that's what you need to know, what he did for you." And so I sat down, found the middle of the, where the New Testament was. I started reading the book of Matthew. I started at chapter 1, and, I was a little confused with all this genealogy stuff, and then, Virgin Mary, born, all the things, and was just reading it. And I got through, like, I think it was chapter 7 when I realized everything I know about religion and Jesus and God and all that stuff, everything that I know and everything that I hate about it and everything I saw with my own eyes growing up, seems like he's agreeing with everything I'm saying. Like, it sounds like this dude sees it the same way I see it.
This dude referring to Matthew?
No, to Jesus.
Oh, to Jesus, okay.
Like the Sermon on the Mount, where he was basically tearing down everybody's religious hypocrisies and all the, everything I saw growing up. It was like,
he saw it too.
Yeah, and he was speaking to it. Like, it wasn't even, and I was just like, I wonder why I never heard. I mean, that's weird. I never heard that before. So I just kept reading, and by that time, I think I went back and reread some of it because I was like, ain't no way. That's not, that's not, whoever painted the picture of that to me did not paint it like that. It was a different, I guess, like a different painting. It wasn't like, in my mind, it was never presented to me like that. I went back and read it again, and then I didn't know what to do with it. It was a weird night. Like, I had read the book into the night. Everybody was asleep, and I was there on my mat under the stairs. That was the only place to put my mat.
On the floor.
On the floor, under the stairs. But when people would walk up the stairs, you got to think, I wonder if their, like, toenails are falling off on me. I mean, it was just gross. It was the grossest place I'd ever been in my life. But I had it. I'd read it. Now I didn't know what to do with it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I couldn't, I didn't know what do I do with this information because it didn't make any sense to me. But then there was like this, in the middle of all that ugliness, there was like this presence, and it was peace that I had been feeling like little tastes of that the previous 6 months. And it was, I don't know, it didn't make any sense to my mind.
Can you describe what the peace felt like? I mean, because I know it's hard to describe, but
it was just like, relax, everything's going to be okay.
Okay.
I don't know. I honestly had never felt that before. I'd had like glimpses of that when I was journaling. I would get like glimpses of that, but not like it was different this night. It was like I could feel it like all over. It was like a presence in the middle of the ugliest place in my mind on a planet. Like there was this weird peace, hope, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I thought, well, surely I must be losing my mind. Like, I mean, I thought several times over the years, like I think my mind's gonna snap and I'm gonna lose my mind. And it was a battle. There was a battle in my mind. Like I don't know what to do with this. And then I was asking myself questions, and it was like back and forth, and it was like hot and sweaty and humid, and it stunk in there. Like it was just like, and then I had like this presence that was telling me, "Come unto me. I know you're weary, I know you're burdened. Come unto me. I got you. Just trust me." And I wrestled with that probably for 2 or 3 hours, like trying to, like, I don't even believe this. I don't believe any of this. And then it wasn't like an audible voice, but it was like, I heard it. It was very like sweet and simple. It said, all you have to do is give up and ask me to come in. And I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I mean, is that it? That's all you need from me? Just give up and ask you to come in? I give up and ask you to come in. I give up. And it's crazy to say it now, but I got saved. But I really don't use those words because I don't like that vernacular. I mean, I know it is in the Bible and all that stuff, but that was when my heart changed. And it was something that you really can't explain, but I gave up. I did. I got to the end of myself. I gave up. And I said, if you're real, come on in. Jesus, come on in. And he did. And when he did, it was like...
Could you feel when you said that?
Absolutely.
Something happened? Or?
No, everything lifted from me, and something on the inside of me changed. Something on the inside of me came alive that had been dead. That you can't put stuff like that into words, but it's like I tell...
But it's true for you.
No. I know. I can't explain to you how my hands are connected to the end of my arms and how I can move them. I don't know how that works, but I know that my hands are connected to the end of my arms and I can move my hands. And it was the same
The same knowing.
Yeah. And there's never been a doubt since then. And that's been 22 years ago, 21, 20 plus years ago. 16 was 20 years, so 24 years ago. And it happened right there on the mat, all by myself. No boxes to check, no hand to raise, none of that stuff. And looking back on that now, I know what happened. I was spiritually dead, and I came alive, and that's what happened. And it's kind of weird, like when you look back on it now, that one decision that I made has affected the rest of my life. And you cannot look at one part of my life today that was not directly affected by that one decision. And I slept that night like I've never slept before. It was like, how did I ever sleep before? And don't get me wrong, in the days that followed my head, I'll be like, is this real? Is this real? And it was real. Crazy. So that was July the 18th, 1996. I was 24 years old. And that was the end of that me. And I started a new life. Still locked up, still looking at prison, still had a ways to go, still had a lot of stuff to work through. But I mean, I knew that on the inside, I was free. It sounds crazy.
Did you know you used the word free? Would you have used that word back then? Like at that time? Would you have known that it was some sort of freedom inside of you?
It felt like that.
It felt like that, okay.
It felt like I'm free, but I didn't really know why or what I was free from. Because I didn't know. I didn't know
what
stuff.
I was free from.
But I also knew that you know that he had a plan for me, and that I was not going to die in prison. I knew that. I mean, I knew I had some things to go through, and some, I still had to suffer the consequences for what I did. But I knew that there was more. Mm-hmm. And, we probably get into the end of this one. We can get into the next one. The ugliest place I've ever seen turned into one of the most beautiful places anybody could ever see. That nasty, disgusting, horrible, violent jail unit in Montgomery County, Alabama. Like, it happened to me, and I didn't go tell everybody. I just started reading the Bible, and then I had somebody come along and say, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "Well, this." I was kind of like I didn't want to be telling everybody, but I was like, "Well, I had this experience the other night, and I think this stuff is real." And then that led to somebody else. So we'll talk about that later on in the next episode, I guess. But it was pretty, that, and then having to explain it to people, like, nobody believed me. They didn't. No one believed me. My mama was like, "Well, baby, I know that you need something and it's hard, but you know what they say about jailhouse religion? You're not supposed to do that. It's not good and it's not real."
I don't know what jailhouse religion is, but
apparently she did. But then, I wrote a letter to some of my friends because we couldn't write letters directly, but I could write a letter like to Big O or to Riggs or somebody. I could send it to my mom and she could remail it to BCI and then they could do the same.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to tell all them, like, it's different. This is for real. But when I wrote them, I got a couple letters back from them, like, well, that's good, Jones, but that thing about being a hypocrite, and it's because they knew me, like, they knew me, and no, they didn't.
And they didn't believe you.
They didn't believe me. They thought I was running some kind of games, I guess. I don't know. But seriously, out of 1,000 men at BCI when I was there, and this was only weeks later when I'm writing them these letters, you line up 1,000 men, I would at least be in the bottom 10 of the ones that would actually, like, turn their life around and start following the Jesus. Like, that was not going to happen for me.
I mean, you say that, but then we heard how you were helping people and making food and, making things better.
Yeah, but they knew me. They knew I was the one that would rip up the Bible and use it to snuff food. Yeah. Or I was the one, when they said, "Let's go to chapel," I'd be like, "I ain't going to chapel. Y'all go to chapel."
Be very exciting to see how it's different moving forward.
Well, it's everything. It's everything from that point forward. Everything was different. Everything changed. I still had the same circumstances. I still had the same mind. I still had, I had all these things to work through. But I had always viewed, like, going to church, religion, changing, and all that stuff as, like, having to have some kind of willpower. But this was different because it was like, he was saying, just come on. Just, I got you, and I'm going to help you. Like, you don't have to do this by yourself. So that was my salvation story, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But if you tune into episode 12, I'm going to talk about navigating my new life. It's not easy, like, trying to do that in prison or in jail. And, I would have to learn how to do both. Actually, when I did do the salvation thing, I did have the thought, I'm never going to church. Like, hopefully you're not asking me to go to church, because I'm not going to church.
I do this, but not that.
And then just, like, the feedback from my family, friends, other inmates, officers, trying to follow Jesus in the nastiest place on earth. And then what would end up happening, the impact that had on the other 50-plus guys that were in my unit. It was something amazing to think about. Back on it, and even during it, it was like, how did this happen? Like, what's happening here? I mean, this don't happen, but it did. But all right, well, we'll see you next time.
All right.
Anything else?
I think we're good. Until next time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Straight Out of Prison podcast. For more exclusive content, head over to our website, teamjones.co/podcast.
Yes, you can subscribe by clicking on the Become a Patron button, and that's going to get you access to our For Real Reel, which is very different than the highlight reel. Some very juicy content there.
Good stuff. Or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Straight Outta Prison Podcast.
Yes, that takes the story to a whole new level where you can see some of the people that James talks about in his story and see some of the places that he's been. I've been loving it, and you will too.
Prison recipes.
Yeah, all the things.
Good stuff. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Also, for more, look me up on Facebook and Instagram, and now TikTok. Look up Chef James K. Jones. All right, and remember to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, if you never want to miss a recipe, hit that little bell. It'll give you notifications anytime I drop a new anything. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make broccoli salad. It's one of the best recipes I've ever had for broccoli salad, and honestly, I didn't used to like it at all. A recipe is one thing, but a method is another thing. So that is one of the things that I want to share in this, is really just how you prep your broccoli. Because a lot of times, broccoli salad is not good because the broccoli's not prepped right. But let's get into it, and I'll show you how to do that. And just to give you a visual, usually even if you buy a bag of broccoli, you'll come out with some big thing like this. And this is what broccoli should look like if you prep it, just a little bite-sized piece. So I've been at events and parties, sometimes, sad to say, even restaurants where they bring you broccoli, even if it's steamed, and it's like that. That is a whole lot of something to put in your mouth. But I just want to give you a visual. This, if you make broccoli salad and you don't prep your broccoli, this is what you end up with. Excuse me. It's just a mess. But if you prep it properly, and I'm going to show you how to do that, you end up with these little beautiful bite-sized pieces. Easy to eat, easy to deal with, makes all the difference in the world. See how the broccoli's easy to eat? This recipe is still a winner. Thank you, Auntie Glennis. And there you have it. This is a great, healthy recipe. It's fun to take anywhere you want to go. It's a crowd pleaser, tasty, filled with delicious goodness, and sometimes even your kids will eat it. This was my Aunt Glennis's recipe, and Auntie Glennis, I hope I'm making you proud here.